Hare Krishna. And so we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura, Text 40. It's April 27th, 2025. So 3-7-40 Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like the natural follow-up literature to Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva navottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 40. Etan me prichata prashnan hare karma vivitsaya bruhi me agyasya mitratvat ajaya nashta chakshusha etan me prichata prashnan hare karma vivitsaya bruhi me gyasya mitratvad ajaya nashta chakshusha etan me prichata prashnan hare karma vivitsaya bruhi me gyasya mitratvat ajaya nashta chakshusha etan me prichata prashnan hare karma vivitsaya bruhi me gyasya mitratvat ajaya nashta chakshusha etan me prichata prashnan hare karma vivitsaya bruhi me gyasya mitratvat ajaya nashta chakshusha. Would someone online like to lead the chanting of the verse?
Etan me prichata prashnan.
Etan me prichata prashnan.
Hare karma vivitsaya.
Hare karma vivitsaya.
Bruhi me gyasya mitratvat.
Bruhi me gyasya mitratvat.
Ajaya nasta chakshusha.
Ajaya nashta chakshusha. Would anyone else like to lead the recitation of the verse? Etan. All these. May. My. Prichata. Of one who inquires. Prashnan. Questions. Hare. Of the Supreme Lord. karma,
karma,
pastimes,
pastimes,
vivitsaya,
vivitsaya,
desiring to know,
desiring to know,
bruhi,
ruhi,
kindly describe,
kindly describe,
me,
me,
unto me,
unto me,
agyasya,
agasya,
of one who is ignorant,
of one who's ignorant,
mitratvat,
mitratvat,
because of friendship,
because of friendship,
ajaya,
ajaya,
by the external energy,
by the external energy,
nasta chakshusha,
Nostra chakshusha,
those who have lost their vision.
those who have lost their vision.
Translation, my dear sage, I have put all these questions before you with a view to knowing the pastimes of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the friend of all, so kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vidura put forward many varieties of questions with a view to understanding the principles of transcendental loving service to the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 41, devotional service to the Lord is one, and the mind of the devotee is not diverted to the many branches of uncertainties. Vidura's purpose was to be situated in that service to the Lord, wherein one merges undivertedly. He claimed the friendship of Maitreya Muni not because he was Maitreya's son, but because Maitreya was actually the friend of all who have lost their spiritual vision due to material influence. Om Ganatmirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kansana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshvare Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatra Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 40, Ektan me pichata prashnan, Hare karma vivitsaya, Bruhi me gyasya mitratvad, Ajaya nashta chakshusha. My dear sage, I have put all these questions before you with a view to knowing the pastimes of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the friend of all, so kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision. Hare Krishna. All right, so Sri Mahatma Vidura is speaking to Maitreya, and in this chapter he's put forth many questions, and so everyone is asking questions. All living entities are asking questions all the time, including in the form that the squirrel is asking questions, and the magnolia tree is asking questions, and we're asking questions. And for the most part, questions, the questions are around eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And these, if we reduce it, and these are the four essential activities of living entities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So where's a drop of water? Where's shelter? How can I defend with my claws? And so, of course, in human life, we don't want to neglect, as spiritual beings, to quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we don't want to neglect our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. At the same time, it's described, Ateto Brahma Jigyasa. Now, it's the second aphorism. No, it's the first aphorism of the Vedanta Sutra. All the Srila Vyasadeva summarized all the Vedas in the Vedanta Sutra, and then that's expanded. His commentary on the Vedanta Sutra is the epic 18,000 verse Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Vedanta Sutra starts Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, Atato means now. Now what? Means now that we've achieved a human form of life, now's the time. Jigyasa means to inquire, to ask, but everyone's asking questions. But now's the time to inquire about Brahma, about spirit, not just to inquire about glorified forms of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay, so when I say glorified forms, like we might eat in a fancy restaurant and the dog or pig eats whatever it finds, but the essential activity is the same. The tiger might defend with its claws, and we might defend with thermonuclear devices or clever defense mechanisms like rationalization and sublimation, but it's basically the tiger with its claws. I'm going to defend my ego, my turf, like that. Okay. So in the human form, we have the special opportunity to ask questions about spirit. Questions like, what am I pretending not to know? The cat's not asking that. The squirrel's not asking that. What happens upon the death of the body? Other species aren't asking that. And yes, what is the purpose of my life? Dogs, cats, they're not asking that. Okay. So it's like squandering an opportunity. We use that. For more than 30 years, we've been using the analogy of using a computer as a doorstop. Okay, it seems to have been appreciated, so we keep using it. Okay, so we can use a computer as a doorstop, and but the computer can be used for much higher level functions. So similarly, we can use the human form for eating, sleeping, mating, defending, but that's kind of like using the computer as a doorstop. Sure. So it's recommended in the Bhagavatam, Kamasya Nindriya Pritir Namo Jivita Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Nartoyaschaya Karma Bhi. That sure, let's attend to self-preservation. Let's keep the body and soul together, healthy, balanced, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And the bulk, as much as possible, to use the human form. To inquire about the absolute truth, to inquire about Brahman, to inquire about those, to go into those questions that other species don't get to. Okay. Otherwise, Shrama Evi Kevalam. Otherwise, it's kind of a sad waste of time what we're doing in the human form. So to the extent that we're doing that and encouraging others to do that, then we're being a real friend. Then we're being a real friend. Srila Prabhupada, he would sign his thousands of letters, your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Okay, so that's because he's being a true well-wisher. He's moving us to ask those questions that are distinctive for the human form. Distinctive for the human form. Brahma, what's the difference between the soul and the body? Between matter and spirit. Okay, so this is real friendship, right? Real friendship, real love, real love. Okay, there can be love as a feeling, when we're speaking here, love is a verb, truly supporting each other and supporting the self to turn towards itself in self-realization, truly supporting each other to realize who we are as not just this machine that engages in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Who we are as that irreducible quanta of consciousness that animates the body. And what's our, yeah, and right, and then what's our natural function in self-realization? Who we are is not the body, and who we are is spirit, soul, and what's our relationship with the supreme spirit soul, with super soul in the heart. There's a text in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvalokam Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gatvamam Shaktim Richati. And Krishna he describes a few things there. One thing Krishna describes that he's the best friend of all living entities. Right? There's an expansion of God sitting right next to us in the region of our heart called Paramatma or Super Soul. And so we can be friends to each other, just like, okay, and we have some here from facilitator training. Everyone here has been in Safatov seminars. And so, like, we start in the very first moments of the foundational seminar. And it's really about distinctions between qualities of sound vibration. And there are qualities of sound vibration that create static, that interfere with that most distinctively human opportunity of self-exploration, the self to turn towards itself and self-awareness. And then there's qualities of sound vibration that support, there are qualities of sound vibration that support and energize that process of super soul connection. We use terms like empathy or roadblocks, and the essence of clearing the space in relationship from roadblocks to communication. It's not just, it's a communication technique. I was conducting a session yesterday with two family members, not my family members, but they were family members with each other. And one of them, for more than 20 years, has a lot of experience with like our book, Safato seminars. She's taken everything. She's staffed courses, et cetera, et cetera. And the others, this is completely new for her. And so I was, and she's a very spiritual person. So she was like, this is foreign for me. Like, she was sincere, but like the idea of like, well, if someone says something, then I give my opinion about it. And if someone says something, then I give my interpretation. If someone says something, then I'm seeing where they're wrong, and I'll tell them because I want to help them. And so I assured her that all those communication strategies that I get, they work for you. They work for you. They're effective, and you're not going to forget how to do them. And right now, in this particular family relationship, they're not working for you. They're not working for you. And the other family member agreed, yeah, they're not working for you. So this family member who's completely unfamiliar with all of this, and I always want to emphasize, it's not that only those who go through Safatov courses are fluent and naturally masterful at these principles or like that. There are many who've never touched a Safatov program who are much more fluent than those who've been through so many programs. So it's not essentially about that. Still, we support wherever someone's at to expand. But for one of these family members, she said, this is really foreign. So just like, she said, okay, but what if I show understanding of what my family member's saying? but what she's saying is wrong. Okay. So, yeah, so it was, but she was really sincere, you know, she was really sincere, but she said, but this is really different for me. Okay. And then what landed for her was that, yeah, it's about, she's familiar with the Vedic language. So it's about super soul connection. And then she got that, we're so yeah, there's, I quoted Srila Rupa Goswami, who speaks about exchanges of love between persons sincere about self-realization and developing consciousness of the divine. And he shares dadati pratigrinati guyamakiti prichate bhunte bojayate chaiva sadvitim pritilakshanam. So some of those exchanges of love are giving and receiving prasadam, giving and receiving gifts, and creating a space in relationship that's conducive to create a safe space to share the heart confidentially, to share what's most confidential and to inquire confidentially. So I explained that you have techniques and communication strategies that in your business life or in different, I get they work, and you're not, and that was important for her. So like, she didn't feel made wrong in what she's doing. You have things that work for you. You're not going to lose them. And then here's a strategy, because you get, in some ways, whatever you're doing in communication, you're really frustrated, it's not working. So here's an approach to sound vibration to support super soul connection. Then she got that. She said, okay, I want to learn this. I want to learn this. Okay, so it required me to connect with patience, and at the same time, I was so much appreciating her sincerity, because this was really different for her. So this is, and we're looking at true friendship here. True friendship, not just friendship or love in the sentimental sense. The word Maitreya means friend. It's one of the words for friend, as is bandhu or surit. In the Bhagavad Gita text I quoted, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, like surit is another word for friend. Actually, surit is a more intimate friend than Maitreya. We like reet means, like, we can see the English word heart comes from the Sanskrit reed, Rida. So reet and su, the English word superior, comes from the Sanskrit prefix. So surit means like someone who's deeply connected heart to heart. That's like the deepest friendship. Okay. And then, okay, so something for me very interesting here. There's so much here. Well, you are the friend of all, so kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision. There's that text. Third chapter, first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Sva Dhammopagate Dharmagana Divisaha. Kalo Nisham Drisham Esha Purnarko Dunodita. That upon the disappearance of Lord Krishna, the Srimad Bhagavatam is giving. But Bhagavatam, it's a literary incarnation of Krishna giving light for those who have lost their vision in this dense darkness of Kali Yuga. Also, it's described in the second verse of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodida Gododaya Pushpapandal Chitra Sandal Tamonoda. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nityananda and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who are just like the sun and the moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali, and to wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. And so now, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport in this connection that Vidura's purpose was to be situated in that service to the Lord, wherein one merges undivertedly. Okay, so merges. This is an interesting term. Oftentimes, we'll hear in Prabhupada's books, is merging kind of in an unfavorable sense, okay, to the oneness. We all merge when we achieve enlightenment. We all merge, and we kind of like, and we just, it becomes this aggregate mass, and we lose we realize that distinctive personality was all an illusion. We merge in Brahman and God like that. So this is a different sort of merging. This is bhakti merging, is what's discussed here. One thing very clearly is that there's no real merging. Krishna establishes this right at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, right before the Dehinosminyata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dirasta trinamuyati verse. That verse, it says, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Before that, Krishna says, Natvevaham chatunasam natvam name janadipa nachevana bhavishyama sarvevayam atakparam. Never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, Arjuna, nor all these kings on the battlefield, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So we're eternally spiritual, individual persons. Whether we're conditioned and confused in lower modes of nature and darkness, or we're fully enlightened, we're eternally persons. There can be the illusion of merging. The example given, a green bird could fly into a green tree. Oh, the bird has merged into the tree. It looks like that, but the bird retains its individuality. And so, but bhakti merging is okay, because we all have free will. Yeah, we all have free will. A quote from a song we use a lot in the foundational seminar: freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want. I gave a little beat to it, right? Okay. Freedom of choice is what you got. Freedom from choice is what you want. Okay, and sometimes I'll quote the author. It's Devo, and sometimes when I say Devo, people think I'm referring to some ancient Greek philosopher, but they do. So fine, okay, David's quoting ancient Greek philosophy. So yeah, so Devo was actually like a punk rock band. They probably still exist. So very, very philosophical lyrics. Very philosophical lyrics, actually. Even their name, what's Devo mean? I'm going on tangents. So at one point, someone's going to need to like, David, like, we're doing Bhagavatam class. Okay, so the name Devo means de-evolution. It means de-evolution. That's actually what their name means. And they have songs about monkeys in business suits and that sort of thing. I'm really going off on tangents here. Okay, so, but I believe they're relevant. They are relevant tangents. So freedom of choice is what we got. And so all the grungies, because, there's different payoffs for the grungies, different payoffs. But practically, if not absolutely all the payoffs, they're forms of freedom from choice. Is what you want. I want to avoid responsibility. Responsibility is painful, it's weighty, it's a burden. I want to hide under the covers. I want someone else to do my thinking for me. And so I'll go into the depression grungy, the shame grungy, the anxiety grungy, etc., etc., etc. Because what I really want is freedom from choice. But here's the existential reality. Whether we're talking about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita or Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosophers. Yes. So, we're free to do anything, but we're not free to be we're not free to be free from choice. So we have freedom from choice. Now, when we choose to direct our capacity for self-determination, I'm going to align my desires with the desires of Supersoul, Krishna, God, the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. That's the merging spoken about here. Okay, that's oneness of desire. It's oneness of desire. And of course, I'll desire and manifest that desire and act on that desire in alignment with my distinctive eternal personality. But that's the merging talked about here when we're one in desire. And there's no force in that. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mat chitta sarva Durgani mat prasada tarishyasi atachat tvam mahankaram nashosyasi ni vinankshyasi. He says in the 18th chapter to Arjuna, he says that, that if you just align your desires with desire of God within the heart, super soul, whatever term we want to use, then you'll easily cross over the ocean of material suffering. And if you ignore that higher guidance within, and again, all this transformative communication, all the skills, all the methods, they're meant to support ourselves and others to connect with that highest guidance within. And lacking that, then life is static and confusion and disturbance and masks and survival strategies and pushing down the beach ball and looking good and self-defeating games. So Krishna says, just align your desires with that highest guidance within, with super soul in the heart, then you're free from the bondage of the modes of material nature. And if you neglect that higher voice and instead act from ahankaram atachetvam, if you don't hear that, if you're neglecting that, then you'll be lost in the whirlpool of a material existence. So we're talking about bhakti merging. It's not the artificial losing my personality. We all merge in one spiritual white light mush. That's an illusion. That's an illusion. No, we're eternal persons with eternal free choice. And our bliss and happiness is aligning our free choice with Krishna's. And then that's a dynamic piece. That's a dynamic piece. And so Vidura is approaching at spiritual authority, bhakti authority, Maitreya, as his spiritual teacher. And this is, I'm thinking, it's like, in closing, thinking here, like, because like on the planet, I'm oversimplifying here, but there are three main movements on the planet. Okay, three main movements. One, some sort of like fundamental religious movements, whether Christianity or Islam, fundamentalism. Another main movement, I'll call it the modernist movement, or kind of like characterized by like the empirical science, like that, starting a few hundred years ago with like Francis Bacon and Descartes, and then Newton, and the modernist movement, like that, Darwin, Freud. And then the third main movement, we can say, let's call it the postmodernist type of movement. And that's like characterized by like the green movement and environmentalism, and because like there's some, as of course there became, if we go back hundreds of years ago, skepticism, cynicism about the fundamentalist religion, just listen to this religious authority because it's just, there's so much corruption, and just Srila Prabhupada said, religion without philosophy, it's sentimentalism or fanaticism. And so intellectual people, they like kind of like, we don't believe this anymore. Like, okay, so then it got into like, of course, the early logical empiricists they were doing their science. Descartes, Newton, it's Blaise Pascal, one of the great mathematicians of the early modernist era. He's the one who said that everyone has a God-shaped hole in their heart. Okay, so they were all doing their science to endeavor to establish the supreme creator on a scientific basis, not just some sentimental anti-philosophical slop. Okay, then as centuries went on into the 20th century, there became more and more skepticism and cynicism about modernism, Because we say, okay, so we have all of this empirical science, and the result is the Holocaust and gas chambers. The result is, yeah, we progressed. This relates to Devo again. We're evolving. And the result of the evolution is we don't even have like clean water to drink. We can't even like breathe the air. Okay, people in some of the big cities, people need to wear gas masks even when there's not a pandemic, right? So it's like, is this really like working? Is this making us happy? So then that evolved into postmodernism. And postmodernism is characterized by an incredulity to the possibility of meta-narratives, meaning an incredulity towards the possibility of foundations for knowledge. Okay. So, all right. Reminded. No, this was a valedictorian at Harvard University, 1980s. And he started his valedictorian speech. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, there's one experience that all of us students, all of us graduates at this fine university, this fine institution for higher education have experienced. And that experience, ladies and gentlemen, is confusion." Somehow they didn't get the big cane and pull him off stage. That experience is confusion. He went on to say, the freedom of our day is the freedom to devote ourselves to any values that we choose on the mere condition that we don't actually believe them to be true. Very profound words, in my opinion. So it really evokes the emptiness and the severe shortcomings of the postmodernist philosophical project. And really, it's a recipe for insanity. Yeah, no, we're open. We're free. We're open. You can believe whatever you want. It's all equal. As long as you don't actually believe it's true, as long as you don't actually accept that there are any absolutes. I mean, if you do, then you're some sort of primitive, and we'll kind of tolerate you in some way, but you're some sort of primitive from the jungles, or you're from like that. As long as you don't actually believe it's true, because the herd of independent thinkers, we all know that there is no truth. Okay, and if in any way you attempt to assert that there are absolutes, then you're not as equal as we are. Okay, then you're inferior. You're some sort of primitive. So at Harvard, he said like that. So, okay, I guess my essence here is this Achintya Beta Tattva philosophy given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhakti philosophy. I am right about the fact that no one can be right. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, there is no absolute truth. Are you sure? Oh yeah. Are you absolutely sure? Checkmate, game over. Okay. So Bhakti, the Bhakti philosophy, and of course this is a big thing, we'll just summarize. The Bhakti philosophy, in these three main movements on the planet, pre-modern fundamentalism, modernist empirical science, and postmodernist uh, 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 that the Bhakti includes all that is valid and true and valid about all three. It includes and transcends it without the inebrities, without the gross defects there. So like, okay, the idea of openness. Yeah, openness is a virtue for someone enlightened and self-realized and God-conscious. I'm not like, I need to defend my position. I'm eager to expand my understanding of truth. I'm eager to deepen my realization about truth, but there's no need to do any survival strategies, looking good, being right. I'm completely secure, so completely open. What's your point of view? What's your perspective? I'm not insecure. If anyone thinks anything different than me, then that's a threat to my existence because my identity is based on, yeah, what's your point of view? I'll carefully consider it. What's your feedback for me? How your perspective on that's different than me. Let me consider it. So openness is a virtue. Openness is a virtue. At the same time, okay, and we can, this might be a little crude, but what a lot that goes on in the name of the postmodernist movement, kind of like so open that my brains have fallen out. There's no brain left. Okay. Let's stay with this for a bit. Okay. So, okay. So openness openness, it's an instrumental virtue. It's not like the goal in itself. It is a virtue and it's a quality. Naturally, a spiritualized person, open, for sure, liberal, open, but it's not like the only principle. And a lot of the postmodern cultures, that's the only possible principle. Okay, and open, because there's no absolute truth. Now, okay, let's just say like this. Let's say like this. In third grade, David Wolf, I was, whatever. Okay, so let's say in first grade. So I was an open-minded child, and so I heard from Mrs. Gerbarg that 3 + 3 is 6. Okay, stay with me here. All right, so 3 + 3 is 6. So that's an absolute truth. 3 + 3 is 6. And I arrived at it because I was an open-minded 5-year-old. Okay? Oh, that means you're a closed-minded fanatic. You're narrow-minded. You don't respect others. I do respect others. And I'm actually open. Like if you have evidence that 3 + 3 does not equal 6, I'm ready to carefully consider it. I'll carefully consider what you have to say. Okay, so openness, it's a wonderful virtue of the diamond shining. Yeah, it's a wonderful virtue. And openness is an instrumental virtue used to arrive at absolute principles. So through openness, we can arrive at, oh, I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. Oh, there's a super soul. Okay, open means you can't actually believe anything, citing the narrator. So just some ways in which Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva Srimad Bhagavatam philosophy, it includes and transcends that which is auspicious about the postmodern movement, and it leaves behind that which is silly, okay, farcical. Similarly with modern empirical science. Okay, so yeah, Yeah, we want a rigorous, like science, it starts with hypothesis, a logical. So we have the hypothesis, that's the logic, the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam in science. Krishna says, Prajakshavagamam dharmyam shushukam kartumavya. He says this process is directly experienced. It's not like the pre-modern dogmatic. You just need to believe. You just need to believe. Well, it doesn't make any sense. You just need to believe. Okay. Yeah, so science rejects that. Nice. Nice. So that's why Prabhupada emphasized this bhakti yoga. It's a science of self-realization, 2 pillars of science, logical hypothesis and a process an experiment we can do to experience the truths of the hypothesis that so many spiritual scientists have experienced. And then, I mean, there's a saying in relation to modern psychology. First psychology lost its soul, then it lost its consciousness, and then it lost its mind altogether. Okay, so if we look at the history of psychology, going back to like Freudian psychoanalysis about 120 years ago, and then into different approaches, then get into like the behaviorism. There's not just no soul or no consciousness or no conscience or no morality. There's no mind. It's just action and reaction of subatomic particles based on their velocity. So then so much of what goes in the way of empirical science, it's soulless. It's soulless, and it's taking away the actual life, and then that just becomes dry and empty. So okay, so this is how the modernist project, the pre-modernist project, the postmodernist project, Bhakti, Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why Prabhupada gave us Srimad Bhagavatam to study every day, at least once, if not more, with others like we're doing now and on our own. It includes and transcends all that is wonderful and auspicious about all those projects, while giving us the intelligence to make distinctions. And this is a deviation from what is logical and true and beautiful and good. I'll read the verse again, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 40. Etan me prichata prashnan hare karma vivitsaya bruhi me gyasya mitratvad ajaya nasta chakshusha. My dear sage, I have put all these questions before you with a view to knowing the pastimes of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the friend of all, so kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision. Hare Krishna, thank you for being living examples of Atato Brahma Jigyasa in the human form, inquiring about absolute truth. I welcome any comments or questions at this time. Bhakti Rosa.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Retrospectively, when I observe my life, I know that there have been times I've had intuition, is what I would have called it.
Yeah.
Towards action that I didn't understand and I didn't listen because I logicked myself out of it. Like, that doesn't make sense. I shouldn't do that. And then would almost immediately reap the consequences of such. And I am endeavoring to be more present, to discern when intuition is speaking to me versus something that might be motivated from feelings that are like grungy or something like that.
Yeah.
In this endeavor and experiment, I'm still observing where I get an intuition and I see it and I choose against it. And so then I guess my question is help with the discernment, help with how to listen and take heed and understanding when we're being spoken to, even for small things.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing, Bhakti. Sharing and asking. You're commenting and you're questioning. Many here are also in our current Bhagavad Gita course, Bhagavad Gita Yogic Principles and Transformative Coaching. So recently, about a little over a week ago, we had our module on chapter 3, and the theme there was oh, by the way, Anandini, I got your email about that. Evam Bude Prambhuva Samstabhyat Manmanatmana Jahi Shatru Mahabo Kamarupa Durasadam. Krishna is talking about, to control the lower self with the higher self, with spiritual intelligence. That's call it intuition, God in the heart, higher guidance within spiritual intelligence. That's what we're talking about. And in that way, we control the insatiable enemy known as lust. Okay. So, so how to differentiate? And another verse I quoted today, the Atacha Tramahankaram, Machita Sarvadurgani, Krishna is talking about distinguishing between the voice of false ego, the lower self, and the voice of super soul in the heart. So that's what you're asking, and right. So, okay, my general response to that, of course, that gets into personal coaching and things like that, but related psychologically, philosophically, Bhagavatam. Okay, generally speaking, I'll speak in we. I could speak in I statements, you statements, we statements. Generally speaking, to the extent that I'm cultivating sattvic habits in any area of my life, whether eating, sleeping, rising time, resting time, communication, money management, how I keep my office. To the extent I'm cultivating sattvic habits compared to rajasic or tamasic habits, I'm going to, it'll be not a perfect correlation, but some strong positive correlation with being connected with super soul and being able to distinguish. That's the voice of my material mind that's just like always trying to get me in trouble. I mean, it means well, whatever, but okay. So sattvic habits, and then so sattva and Shuddha sattva, or transcendental. So basically, super soul is called Chaitya Guru. It means the guru in the heart. That's the inner intuition, whatever term we want to use. So Srila Prabhupada is the representation of super soul. And so by staying in touch with Srila Prabhupada, reading his books, hearing his lectures, associating with those who are cultivating or dedicating their lives to know him. So reading Prabhupada's books, then that's enormously helpful for me to distinguish what's the voice of the material ego and the material mind who's masquerading as spiritual, and what's the actual voice of super soul. So that's like a confirmation. Thanks for your question. Yeah.
So a small example to give a little bit of context, like I could be doing an activity and it comes to me like, get up, go outside. And I don't have any reason for that, right? Like there's nothing in me that thought that I should go outside today. And then, so like my thought might be, well, you know, I'm busy, I'm doing something, and so I don't listen. And what's interesting is like maybe I find out that there was something going on I would have found out about or something like that. And it's like that same little voice says, if you don't listen to me for the small things, I can't move you for the big things either. Right? And so I'm not listening in these small little moments, and I'm feeling a lot of pain because I'm like, I'm frustrated. But yes, thank you.
I appreciate your sharing. And frustration can be like when the GPS system is beeping or whatever it does. Just like, okay, it means I'm not on track. Let me get on track. Thank you, Bhakti and Rosa. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Sylvan.
So yesterday, as it happens, I was reading this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So it's in reference to Soul. You just said unrealized soul. So I guess that's, well, I want to confirm from you that the unrealized soul, it's the soul that is on its journey to become its own super soul. And then I read this. The yogi who knows that I and the super soul within all creatures are one worships me and remains always in me in all circumstances. So it's obviously the first part that I'm interested in your interpretation. And actually, when I said the word interpretation, I haven't read the purport because I am really scared of interpretations. Because I want to find out for myself, but it seems rather I've got a bit of work to do to find out for myself, and then in the meantime all I've got is interpretations, but they are also, those interpretations are going through maybe some not yet super soul filters.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you just read a text from Bhagavad Gita chapter 6. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Sylvan. Thank you. All right, so we talked in the class about, in the human form, we have a distinctive opportunity to differentiate between the body and the soul. Okay, and then more subtly is the opportunity to differentiate between the soul and the super soul. So within this body, I mean, it gets more complex than that, but basically within this body, there are two souls. In one sense, there are trillions of souls because each living cell, it contains a soul, but we're not going to talk about that now. So in the body, there are two souls. And this isn't just David Wolf's opinion. This is Bhagavad Gita, which is the source book of all yoga. Bhagavad Gita describes Kshetragyam chapimam viti sora kshetreshu bharatak kshetrachettakinam gana yatadganam matam mama. So Bhagavad Gita describes in the body there are two souls. There's the soul and there's the super soul. Now, and in some passive yoga, the yogi will meditate and they'll understand, kind of like Rene Descartes in his meditations, he understood he's not the I'm not the hand, I'm not the leg. He went to I think, therefore I am. He didn't seem to quite he understood he's not the external body, didn't quite understand he's not the mind. That's my interpretation of Descartes. So some yogis, they'll met and they'll realize, the soul. But then some yogis, they get confused and they think they are the super soul. So this is like, it's a pitfall. It's an illusion. We're not the super soul. We're the soul. And sitting right next to us in the region of the heart is the super soul. And we can go through some logic to understand that. But then in bhakti, bhakti gives us an experience of how we're not the body, we're the soul, and we're not the super soul. And so bhakti is the relationship, and to cultivate the spirit of desiring to serve the super soul, to please the super soul. The super soul is always caring about us, always loving us. But then there are some things, like when we truly act in our best interest, then the super souls, we're actually adding to the joy of the super soul. So that's one point related to my understanding of the text you read, and bringing in some other parts of Bhagavad Gita. We're not matter. We're spirit. We're the spirit soul, and we're not the super soul. The super soul is always giving us wise guidance, wise love, always giving us wise guidance. Material life means we're ignoring that wise guidance. And Bhakti Rosa shared about that a few minutes ago. Material life means we have static, we got roadblocks. And it's like, I'm going to do my own program and ignore the super soul as our best friend is staying with us, giving us wide. When we talk about the supreme facilitator, that's the super soul. The Sanskrit term for super soul is Paramatma. The soul is Atma, super soul is Paramatma. And so, meaning, it's like even if we act in lower modes and we act alienated from ourselves and we act in violating the rights of others, the super soul will facilitate our desires through material energy. The example can be given, let's say if a citizen of the state, the citizen of the state is always acting under the auspices of the government, the king, the queen, the president, the prime minister, the government, however we want to term it. It's an analogy. Okay, but even if it says, I'm going to break the laws, I can do whatever I want. Okay, then the state, the king, will facilitate. Okay, so you're still going to act under the auspices of the government in a department called prison. Okay, and that's for our rehabilitation. So the super soul is the supreme facilitator and facilitating our desires, our intention, our deepest intention, either with material energy or spiritual energy. That we give happiness to the Paramatma, the super soul, when we take shelter of the spiritual energy and act with our desires merging with super soul's desires. So at least that's my initial response.
I'd like to add further into this. What is then the difference between super soul and God?
Okay.
Because in I've got for me, what you express is basically the same.
Yeah, and it is valid to use those terms synonymously. Okay, it is valid. And so super soul is an aspect of God realization. Okay, this is clearly described, so it is valid. There is more to God than super soul. At the same time, super soul is a valid aspect of God realization. It's described. Some of you probably know the verse I'm about to quote from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2:11. Vedanti tat tatvavidas tatvamyaj genam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. So that verse describes there are three essential aspects to realization of absolute truth. One is the Brahman, Brahmeti, means the oneness of all energies. That's a valid aspect of God realization. An intermediary aspect of God realization is Paramatma, that's super soul. Parameti, Paramatmeti, the super soul in the heart of all living entities. It's the same super soul, but like there's a full super soul expansion sitting right next to Sylvan and to Anandini and Anasuya, George, Danielle, and Parampara, and Rosa, and myself. There's a super soul within every atom. It's a full expansion of God. So that's like an intermediary aspect of God realization, super soul. And then the third most complete aspect of God realization is called Bhagavan. Bhagavan's the source of super soul and source of the energetic oneness.
So one more, last one. Where does your analogy with the diamond sit?
Okay. Thanks for that. The analogy with the diamond. And yeah, well, of course, we borrowed that analogy from Srila Prabhupada and St. Teresa of Avila. Her whole book, Interior Castle, is about that analogy, really. Okay, so the diamond is the soul, not the super soul in the analogy. And the diamond being cleansed, diamond coming towards sattva, the dust, the dirt, the mud on the diamond being cleansed, means it's synonymous with the soul hearing cleanly and clearly from super soul with no static or roadblocks. That's what it means that the diamond gets cleansed.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Sylvan. Hare Krishna. Anandini.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare-
you for the class. Yeah, you were speaking about, and also just now, like the Bhakti merging, becoming the desire of Paramatma or Super Soul God, Krishna.
Yeah.
And then what Sylvan just expressed from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, about,
Mhm.
and there's this verse that when we conquer the mind,
Mhm.
Super Soul is achieved.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of questions around the mind right now. And one is, so what is the goal? Is the goal for the mind to become peaceful,
Mhm.
free of like desires and envy and anger, or is the goal to just notice, oh, that's the mind.
Mhm.
That's mind speaking here. And that's not the deeper truth of who I am and what I really want. Like my
Mhm.
mind can want many things that I don't really want.
True. Yeah. And we minded last Saturday in the Bhagavad Gita class, we spoke about one's deepest desire and then the loudest desire. And so the louder the mind, you want this, that's the loudest desire, but it's not really the deepest desire of the soul.
Yeah, as you're saying this, I'm just relating it to the what do you want process.
Sure.
So that when you do the demonstration, what do you want? Like, yeah, I want a haircut, I want a nice dinner. So that's like the mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we go to the deeper place, and that would be the like deeper and deeper, depending on where a person connects with, but it could connect to soul, what the soul wants, and that can be aligned with what super soul wants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my question is, what is the goal, or what is where to put the focus? You know, there's this verse in our Srimad Bhagavatam reading group,
Yeah.
German. We're reading the questions, Parikshit's questions in the second canto.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's asking many questions, and there is a verse which I want to read it. It's okay. It's 285. The sound, maybe you can recite it. I don't know. The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, for example, Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So it's a beautiful poetic verse.
Yeah.
What I'm understanding from it is, okay, the self-realized devotee doesn't mean there's no anger, lust, and hankering sitting in the mind and intelligence and the senses. And then like when the soul is self-realized and a devotee, then the cleansing happens. So yeah, I don't know how to put the question. Well, is the focus to first cleanse and then be self-realized, or be self-realized and then become cleansed? Or is it just about devoting myself to Super Soul and Krishna, and then everything happens as a side effect? Is my question clear?
Well, I feel clear on it. There's interrelated questions there. That question naturally lends itself to like maybe a series of classes and courses. But I'll try to give a 5-minute response, okay? All right. Yeah, because there's a lot there. So yeah, as far as like, okay, the mind's doing that and that, I guess let me just not give power to it, notice it. It's described in Bhagavad Gita, Bandhurat Manas Tasya. This is also 6th chapter. Inamirat Manatita Anatmanas tu Shatrudve Vartetat Meda Satruvat. The mind can be the worst friend, the worst enemy, or the best friend. And that's important because if we're living in the same room with our worst enemy, ooh, that's not a good thing. So if we notice the mind's being the worst enemy, which the material conditioned mind probably in conditioned existence for trillions upon trillions of lifetimes, it's going to be a lot of worst enemy. Let's notice it and not let that interfere with enthusiastically engaging in our self-realization devotional service project. Then there's the verse Prabhupada often quotes from the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, referring to Maharaj Ambarish, Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. His mind was always at the lotus feet of Krishna. So the first one, notice the mind and, simply notice, and then thank you for sharing, Mr. Mind, Mrs. Mind. You have a term for that, Anandini, which I'm not going to say in Bhagavatam class. Yes. So, okay, that's not the goal. That's a strategy. That's a strategy. The ultimate goal is like Maharaj Ambarish, Savaya Mana Krishna Patara Vindaya. The mind's fully absorbed in Super Soul, the form, the sound vibration, the pastimes, the service of Krishna. That's the goal. And otherwise, it's like a strategy. Okay. Now, as far as self-realization, what you're sharing, well, one thing it reminds me of is those. Well, it's 2 verses. Well, it's a series of verses towards the end of chapter 14. Chapter 14, the very end, Krishna says, Brahmano hi pratishtam. He says, I am the source of the impersonal Brahman. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna is the source of the Brahman, the oneness. A little bit before that, there's a verse where Krishna talks about the enlightened state. And in that text, Krishna says, like, yeah, whether there's enlightenment or whether there's illusion, whether there's peace and love and compassion or envy or greed, whatever, the mind's going to do things. Whatever, one is not disturbed. So no, the mind's doing that and I'm not disturbed. I'm continuing steady in my devotional service. So that's one stage of enlightenment. Okay, that's one stage. The mind and the emotions, they're doing what they do. And I don't identify with that like that. Now, we might say a higher stage of self-realization and enlightenment is when even the mind and the senses, and this is very high, this is like, Goloka Vrindavan stage, even the mind and the senses, like Maharaj Ambarish, Savai Mana, Krishna, even the mind and senses, they're no longer materially attracted, they're spontaneously attracted to serve God and to serve Krishna and to spiritual form, no longer attracted to material form, just spontaneous. So that's like a higher level. But an impressive level is the mind and the thoughts and the mind, they're doing what they're doing. And I'm not disturbed by it. That's self-realization. And Krishna emphasizes that in chapter 14. As far as process, one closing part, I gave myself 5 minutes. I think I'm at about 4 minutes. So both. Yeah, so we want to engage in our introspective process. What's a grungy? What's a payoff? What's a self-defeating belief? Where am I looking? Where am I being inauthentic? We want to engage in all of that sattvic process. And that naturally leads. Then the mind is peaceful, that leads to super soul realization, and like that. And so that's important. And that's so much what we do in Sattva Tov, right? Through Sattva is just, it's good in itself. And it's the auspicious platform to choose, to use our freedom of choice, to choose transcendental devotional service. And the other part is true too. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Jani Yat Yashubhaya Gyam Gyanam Chaya Dahitu Kam. That by engaging in devotional service from wherever we're at, but I haven't cleansed, I haven't understood anything. I haven't understood everything. But where did this come from? My mother and the way my dad talked to me? Or I haven't done all that work yet. Whatever. When Rajas, Tamas, engage in devotional service, and we get cleansed and we get super soul connection. And part of our process of bhakti is to do honest introspective work. Dharma Pojita Kurtvichar Pamurni Matsaranam Satam. Bhagavatam is for those aspiring devotees who are thoroughly honest. So do our introspective work, and even I'm incomplete, I'm not completely sincere, whatever, engage in devotional service from wherever we're at. So they're complementary. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. That's very helpful. So you were saying, making a distinction between the material mind and the spiritual mind. So the material mind is like going for material things. That's the material mind. And the spiritual mind will be the mind that is interested in super soul and acting for the welfare of all, and like love and empathy and devotion. That's the spiritual mind.
Yeah. And it can be the same energy, because, okay, like right now we all have spiritual minds. That's so exciting. No, because we're talking about super soul, transcendental philosophy. What's the meaning of life? So we're engaging that mental energy in spiritual ways. But then maybe later today, I'll be engaging my mind, or my mind will be dragging me around, and it'll be focused on mundane things that alienate me from a cleanse, the cleaning of the diamond. So it's like the same energy, and we can use it materially or spiritually, just like a hand. I can use my hand. I can use my hand for spiritual purposes or material purpose. It can be a spiritual hand or a material hand, spiritual mind or material mind.
I have a few more questions.
That's what we're here for.
You mentioned about observing the mind and not being disturbed by it.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's no, we use a process, a strategy.
It's like a strategy, yeah.
And so, and then you mentioned, okay, there's also introspection.
Yeah.
Like honestly looking at myself, where I'm at, and where am I deceiving myself, and where am I, like, what's really going on?
Yeah.
And that's also the mind.
We can use the mind for introspection.
So it's two things. It's like one is just observing what the mind is doing.
Yeah.
And then the introspection is, well, maybe looking behind why the mind is doing what it's doing.
Yeah, we can use the mind for observation, for introspection. We can use it for different functions. You know, there was two or 3 days ago in my morning reading, one of the things I'm reading is Srila Prabhupada's lectures. I've recently completed his lectures on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Before that, we read his 11-volume set on lectures on Srimad Bhagavatam. Now I'm reading lectures on Sri Brahma Samhita, like that. So anyway, one lecture, because he talked about atonement, and like there's different Vedic processes. Do this, and you know, if you committed a sin, you do this, that, and then and Srila Prabhupada said that real rectification, real atonement, he said that's meditation. introspection. He uses those terms. It reminded me, like, we have our 5 A's. You know, we have our 5 A's, which is like for restoring integrity. And Prabhupada said, like, real atonement. It's not some mechanical thing, do this, do that, and then you're the real thing. Of course, those externals can help. We can go through the 5 A's mechanically. And the real thing, have I really transformed my heart? Have I realized, oh yeah, that's the deception, that's the lust, that's the greed that led me to violate my integrity, to break my agreement, to not care about someone else's feelings. So Prabhupada said, real atonement, that's introspection, that's meditation. And yeah, so to use our mind and intellect for really introspective meditation to change our heart, so that I'm not doing those, so that I'm changing my behavior based on internal meditation. It just came to me hearing the words you used.
Thank you. Yeah, the coming to true atonement, like true understanding, and maybe remorse, and then compassion, and that's the transformation. And we can use the mind to achieve that. Thank you.
You're mentioning the word remorse. May I chip in here?
Sure, Sylvan.
Anandini, you're mentioning the word remorse, and there may be remorse, or there might just be it's not an absolutely essential step to go through remorse. It may be that remorse doesn't come. I've seen it and I'm changing it without having to go through the whole I'm bad space. I want to make a point of that, because remorse can be really heavy if it's overindulged into.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I was thinking of genuine remorse, not beating myself. I mean, I know that too very well. But I mean the genuine remorse of just acknowledging, oh yeah, here I did something. I was really self-centered and it was hurting others.
I appreciate the conversation. Thanks for sharing, and Nandini, thanks for your comments, Sylvan. Yeah, because like remorse can become, we use that term a lot in Safatova, a toxic, grungy thing, wallowing and indulging in soter, like that. And that's different than, yeah, we might experience some remorse. Sometimes it will be heavy, sometimes it will just be a tinge. But like it becomes genuinely cleansing and spiritual. Okay, let that move me to change and actually become a more pure person. Then it's like that. But yeah, I'm in agreement with what I get you're expressing, Sylvan, that yeah, we don't want remorse or shame or that to become like this whole separate drama. At the same time, there is a healthy place to feel. I'm experiencing regret, remorse, I'm experiencing guilt. All right, I don't want to make a drama out of it, but let that move me to actually become a better person.
I have one last comment and just an insight I had because I was moved by the verse at the end. You are the friend of all, so kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision. So I was thinking, well, if my mind, it's the mind who deceits and is dishonest, and I use the mind to become honest, it can be very tricky. How can my mind notice the blind spots that it has itself? And so I just, yeah, God, like that's why it's important to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, for example.
Yes, but
Hear for those who are more realized than me, because they can give my mind a new perspective. They can give my mind a bigger vision.
thanks for that. Thanks for that. Yeah, we have our processes and like that, and conditioned life means I'm prone to blind spots, and I'm prone to think I'm more spiritual than I am and more honest than I am. And I like how you termed it, Anandini. Srimad Bhagavatam, we're associating with Srila Prabhupada, with Vidura, with Maitreya, with Maharaj Parikshit, with Krishna himself, with Srila Vyasadeva. These are persons who are smarter, more learned, so much more pure than us, and then we get to shine light on where I maybe had some self-deceptions. Very powerful process. Thank you all for giving your attention and focus to Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.